Hi there. Today we're going to be talking about tactics used by batterers and abusers. Batterers are abusers. Abusers are technically, by my definitions, also batterers. But it really just depends. Sometimes, and I want to make that specification because sometimes when we're going through domestic violence or we just haven't yet healed, we don't really see the difference. So maybe if it's like I have heard before in the past, well, she just broke my phone, so it wasn't really like she was abusive, but that is 100% abuse. Or I'll hear women say, well, he just called me fat. That's not really abuse. And while it may not be something you consider abuse yet, if behaviors like that continue, it will become abuse. So it's important to recognize the differences there and the similarities. The tactics I'm going to cover, there's 6 of them. Let me make sure. So I got my notes, as always, right in front of me. And there's 6 of them I'm going to cover today. Yes, 6 of them. The first one we're going to talk about is intimidation. So intimidation happens when abusers use things like gestures, dirty looks, throws temper tantrums, breaks things in the family home, abuses pets, and or brandishes a weapon. Any one of those things is abuse. A combination of those things is abuse. I don't want, if you're watching this and you're still going through domestic violence, what I don't want is for a justification process to keep happening. It's really, really bad for our brains should we get out of the situation. It's bad to stay in the situation in general, but I think we all know that. But sometimes when we justify behaviors over and over and over, essentially we're turning our brain into a new brain, basically. We are shedding our personality and allowing and or morphing into more of our abuser's personality. So intimidation, this is when an abuser can, they do things like they'll take a knife and wave it around when they're upset at you. They'll, posture at you. They'll maybe slam a door shut right in front of you. Kicking baby gates is something I've personally seen. Kicking dogs, hurting family pets, throwing your things out on the lawn. These are all forms of intimidation, and believe it or not, are actually recognized by the court as such. Once again, it depends on your state, so I would really encourage you to invest in some research as far as, is your state a 50-50 state as far as child custody goes, and then kind of weigh the pros and cons. I always stay on the safe side and I document every single thing. It doesn't matter if it's just like a text message to somebody else from my abuser. I'm documenting it. It's kept. So I recommend just keeping it in documentation if you're on your way out. If you're not on your way out and you're just learning about domestic violence, which is what I did, I started learning about it before I realized I needed to get out of there. I would go on my work computer, so it wasn't really, he couldn't access my data or my information. And once it really clicked, then I kind of got the ball rolling and I was married. A lot of times couples aren't married, so it's a little bit easier. I don't want to say easier, but it's a little bit more convenient to get out and stay out. And you don't really have to go through the divorce process, which is a little bit logistically and legally, it's a little bit easier to get out of a domestic violence situation. I'm not saying it's not hard. I want you to understand that. It's still very hard. It's going to be one of the hardest things that you'll ever do in your life, but it's well worth it. I'm 3 years out now, and I couldn't imagine my life going any other way than it is right now. The second form of tactics, and mind you, the 6 tactics I'm reading to you guys, those are not limited tactics. It's not just limited. Domestic violence is not just limited to these tactics. They're people. They evolve, they adapt, they improve, they learn, they research. They're capable of manipulating and sort of changing into better predators, so to speak. Economic abuse is another form. If your abuser is withholding access to money, credit, and or debit cards, if you have to ask before you spend any money that you earned, which by the way is a violation of federal law as far as employers go, and you should sort of hold your partner to the same standard. Those are wages earned and they should be wages paid. So in some situations, the abuser will keep the victim from working. I know I can only really speak to my situation in a lot of my videos because everything is just so darn different. I know in my situation, I was actually forced to work 2 jobs while my abuser didn't actually have a job for the extent of our relationship. And I wasn't allowed to spend any of the money that I had earned without first talking to him about it. And oftentimes I would see, we'd get payday, a few thousand come in on payday, and, within 3 or 4 days, it was completely gone. And it took me a lot of courage and a lot of nerve to one day just have had enough and cut off sushi and cut off my old card and actually get an entirely new card. So it took me a long time to get that strong and that bold and that serious with my boundaries. But I mean what I say and I say what I mean. So emotional abuse is the third tactic. Doing things like making fun of the victim, putting them down, or name calling, using guilt as a way to get what they want. This is when gaslighting typically will take place. The abuser will try to do things that make their victims feel crazy. So, for example, if you came home from work and you put your car keys down on the counter and a couple hours out of, after chilling out, kind of getting some relaxation going, you want to run to the store and go get yourself, a tea or, a snack or something. So you go to grab your car keys and they're gone. I have seen this happen where, you put your thing down and the abuser, manipulator, narcissist, whatever you want to call it, will take them and then make you feel crazy when you're searching, frantically, not frantically, all around the house for your keys. And when you, finally reach out and you're like, hey, can you help me find my keys? I can't find my keys. They will put them down somewhere else and then make you feel crazy for losing your keys. And this, this is in the process, they're, mind you, in the process of you finding your keys, they're mocking you, making fun of you, calling you stupid for, forgetting, how could you forget where your keys are, stuff like that. That's emotional abuse and gaslighting. And typically during the emotional abuse cycle of their mood swings, that's when you'll see the gaslighting take place. And it's meant to break you down. The mood cycles, and I'll dive into this in another video, but the mood cycles of narcissistic abusers especially, they are designed very, very carefully by their own brain. They notice, the hoovering works to suck you back in. The gaslighting works to make you doubt your sanity. And then the being mean and breaking your psyche. And being mean can mean verbally, emotionally, physically, financially, things like that. That's typically the 3 cycles you'll see. There's a 4th, which is like, I call it manic happiness, but it really depends on what research you conduct, what it, might be called. But manic happiness, which I sort of include in the hoovering end of the cycle. So psych is really, really fun to get into. Anyways, I always digress, which is why I bring my notes. Using others is another common tactic, and this one's going to be a second, so bear with me here. If you haven't heard of the term flying monkeys, now you have. Abusers will spread rumors about their victims. They're working to isolate you, so they'll try to make everyone around you and themselves, around the relationship, they'll try to make everyone around the situation act a certain way, and they'll portray you as the crazy one. In these situations, it's really, and this is another sort of dark psychology tip to win against a narcissist or an abuser. And I use the term win loosely. Nobody really wins in an abusive situation. So, in these situations, it's really, really, really important to keep a level head and not react to the rumors or the accusations. It's perfectly fine to explain your side of the situation, but it's never good to get emotionally invested into that conversation. If family members or friends are coming up to you talking about how crazy they thought you are for doing XYZ, and the events never happened, remaining calm and collected is going to show your true side. And getting overly emotional will actually validate what the abuser said, because they're making you out to look crazy, and only crazy people get emotionally volatile really quickly. So within the psych realm, you want to make the flying monkeys feel, aka friends or family, feel safe around you, because abusers will always, always, always slip up. They will always show their true colors at one point or another. And being in emotional control is going to give people the sense of safety and reliability around you. As far as psychologically winning against your abuser in court, you'll have to demonstrate a long-term, even-keeled energy for the judge to also feel confident in your story, because what we went through as domestic violence victims is not normal. So when we go up there and we say all these abnormal things have happened to us, we were strangled, we were threatened with a knife, we were kicked out of the house, our dog was abused, things like that. Maybe our kids suffered physical abuse. When we go up to a judge and we're hard charging and just telling our story and really, marching in our truth, that is going to seem inconceivable to a judge. I cannot stress this enough. It's important to bring up your claims and your motions and file appropriately and show your exhibits and your evidence. But if you get emotionally volatile during the transaction, especially with the judge, it's going to make them doubt, because what we know as far as our instinct goes is that liars tend to get emotionally overreactive and over-invested. So when we really want something that is maybe untrue to ring with somebody or really resonate with our audience, we tend to over-exaggerate and, well, he said blah, blah, blah. You cannot get like that. I can tell you firsthand that the best reactions I get are typically when I just kind of really almost minimize it, and I'm like, oh, I can believe that they said that. That's something that they've said to me about somebody else. I completely understand that that's something that they say. And you can also do that simultaneously saying, I bet he knew that wasn't true and he was saying that. And just move on real quick. It's kind of a weird tactic, but just really ringing home your truth is a great way to do that, but you have to do that with confidence and security and emotional reliability and giving somebody the feeling of safety. Your listener should be feeling safe that you are reliable for your information, not that you're mad, angry, hurt, because that is really none of their business. And I say this in earlier videos, and I'm going to continue to say it in every video. Everything you do with a narcissistic abuser, especially if you have kids, especially if you're going through court, it is now a business transaction. So if you know that, even if you don't know that somebody is going to go back to them communicating what you're communicating right now at this moment in time, you need to treat even that flying monkey, that friend, that family member, even though you may love them dearly, they are now a business transaction. What is going on in your divorce is nobody's business. So you keep your personal feelings out of it and you keep it moving forward, and that's going to show the judge in the long run that you're reliable, you're accountable, and you're moving on and you're doing things in the best ways that you know how. The fifth method of the fifth tactic that I could think of today was coercion and threats. These are used in negative and sometimes seemingly positive ways. One way that I've personally experienced this was when my abuser actually left a note suggesting, and I have to word this in certain ways so that this video doesn't get removed from YouTube, but suggesting that his life was going to end intentionally. Do you see what I'm saying there? I can't say that SI word on YouTube. I can't say that. So these threats are used pretty frequently by abusers, and I know that it's hard, but the easiest way to handle it is to just ignore it. You don't always have to just ignore it, because I believe in my heart of hearts that any letters with that should be taken very seriously. But you can call, you can do what I did, and I ended up calling the state patrol office for state patrol officers and just leaving it at that. We were, he knew I was leaving. He did that intentionally to cause a rise. In fact, the next day when he came home, he literally told me, I thought you weren't going to look for me. And that was why he acted out, because he wasn't getting his attention and he needed attention. So, it's hard, but it is what it is. So another little sub thing on this, abusers are usually, and this is going to grind some gears, I know, but bear with me. Abusers are usually too selfish to intentionally, so they do this as a way to continue manipulating us. They usually do it when they're when we're ready to leave, the victims are ready to leave, as a form of emotional abuse and guilting you into taking them back. I cannot stress this enough. If this happens to you, you need to go call the police and get the proper resources on their way to your abuser, and you need to just go. It's not appropriate. You're not a therapist. You're not a police officer. You're not a social worker. You're not there for their mental health. You're there to be an equal partner. So get the proper resources and GTFO. You know what I mean? I can't even say this. Obfuscation. I'm going to have to Google it. It's just a fancy word. It just means that they're blaming others for what they did, basically. Usually they're victim blaming. Usually it's a way that abusers will try to escape accountability for the awful things that they do. You'll frequently see it in a form of, well, if you did the chores like I asked you to do, then I would not have hit you. I would not have screamed at you. Things like that. If you didn't act this way, I wouldn't have done this. And it's a really big way, and I know that language may be triggering for some of us, but it's a really big way, and I cannot tell you enough. This is how abusers escape accountability, and it does not stop in your relationship. When you go on and you get a divorce, you file for child custody, everything else, they are going to bring that up in a courtroom and say, well, she did this, so that's why I took the kids when I wasn't supposed to. Or he did this, so that's why I blocked them and did not communicate anything with them. Or, you know what I'm saying? So they will really, 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 ring your behavior in as the reason, as far as, the further manipulation within the legal system, within, just a continued relationship. If you don't have kids and you're just going through a breakup with them, trying to cut the cord, all that good stuff, they will really, really, really blame the victim, and they will for their whole life. So I want you to understand that when you are moving forward from an abuser, they will blame you for everything for the rest of their life. And that's fine. That is not our business. What is our business is our own behavior. And if we want to do things like keep full custody, if we want to do things like grow in our healing world for our kids to be a better parent, if we want to go to therapy, we have to realize that some of our behavior can change. And I'm not victim blaming here. What I am saying is that we can create boundaries that give us more safety and control back over our lives in fun little ways. And one of those ways is to just, if you communicate on, let's say, so for example, for my situation, we get, he gets Sunday visits via Skype or whatever it is, every Sunday. So Monday to, usually Saturday, Friday, all of my communication, I do not communicate with them Monday through Saturday. Sunday is the day for communication. That's it. That is it. And that's not a boundary that I have to go tell them. That's not something I have to go tell anybody. I can go tell a judge and they're going to be perfectly understanding, but it's not something I have to communicate. It's just something I do. That's just something I do to give me and my family a sense of safety again, a sense of not looking over my shoulder, not worried about what's going to be happening. So with this, I bid you adieu. These are just, once again, a few tactics that abusers use to really make our life miserable. And the first step, like I say in every one of my videos, is recognizing, researching, and changing. It's really all you can do. Okay. All right, my loves, you got this. You're awesome, and you're not alone. Bye.